the thing with the union is like, if I feel like in any way that I'm being treated unfairly or something's not right, I can go to someone who's knowledgeable and who's gonna have my back.
Which side are you on? Which side are you
Britney is the name of the employee at Wells Fargo, and Britney Ball, a personal banker at the Anniston Wells Fargo branch in Anniston, Alabama, a member of Wells Fargo Workers United, CWA. Britney, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Just to start off, can you talk to us a little bit about yourself, like your background, your job at Wells Fargo, and how you first got involved in organizing your workplace?
Sure. Well, my name is Brittany. I'm a personal banker with Wells Fargo. I started as a part-time teller in Los Angeles, and I moved to Alabama maybe in 2016. And from there, I became a personal banker. And I've been with Wells Fargo since 2013, the end of 2013. So a little over 11 years. So I'm a single mom, and I started working at Wells because they had a position open. And at the time, I was working in retail. So I said, perfect, maybe I can just work two jobs. But then they moved me up to full time. So then I quit my second job and just kept Wells Fargo. So, yeah.
So thank you for that. Yeah, it's always helpful to kind of know someone's background there. And I'm curious, like before this campaign took off, did you ever think of yourself as a union person? Was there something that shifted for you, or was there like a moment when you realized that something has to change and organizing with the coworkers is a way to do that?
Well, so a little bit about like the beginning when I started with Wells Fargo, there were a lot of things that were not right when I started. And I had, kind of like stood on my beliefs and like saying I wasn't gonna, indulge in the type of behavior that Wells Fargo was indulging in at the time. And of course, they got caught up for that. So I made sure not to have myself in a jam by, staying true and following these policies and procedures. And that was like my first kind of like red flag, but I didn't know much, it was that lack of like knowledge to kind of like raise my hand and say, hey, this isn't right, because I really didn't know that it was wrong. With Wells Fargo, it's such a huge company, you would think, they're doing everything by the book, everything's, a-okay, but it wasn't. And so I had a manager who really wasn't fair. And I started going to HR and, um, but I kept getting muted. I kept getting turned down, or, there were never like resolutions to my problems. There were only like, well, maybe you should do it like this, or have you talked to your manager? And I'm like, I'm calling you all to see what to do, not talk to my manager. It's far beyond that. So, there were like situations like that. And I'll give you an example. Um, she would make comments that would kind of like, you know, that they weren't exactly like corporate America appropriate. Like, so I'm African American and she was white. And one day she came to work and like I would wear, my hair in different hairstyles, and she would like make little comments about my hair, or um this one particular day she came and she had cornrows. She had her hair braided to the back. And she said, "Oh, do you like my hair? I look like you now." And I was like totally taken aback. And I'm like, is that something that's fair? Like, is that something that she can say? So, and I didn't even have to raise my hand. Another coworker had like said something, and of course nothing happened, but they wound up opening up a whole investigation. And with Wells, it's always like they want to like hush you or brush it up under the rug. And that's what I felt happened there. So that was years ago. So then when I moved here, it was kind of more of the same thing, but it was a little more subtle. So at this point, I'm a little more confident. I've been with the company a while. I know how things go. So I would, push back and give my opinions on things that were happening. And again, going through HR, going through the proper channels, and nothing would really be, it wouldn't, like, there was no like resolution to anything. It was always, well, we'll keep you informed. And, um, oh, we've decided that there was no, like, for example, I had like a retaliation case. Oh, there was no retaliatory actions that took place. We've investigated and we considered all the facts and all that BS, and nothing happened. Um, so that's like one of my reasons for really like starting the journey, um, because I felt like I was being silenced, and I know Wells Fargo, they're only going to look out for themselves. Um, and I felt like no one really had my back. Um, and like I said, follow the chain of command. That didn't work. So one day we got some mail with union information, and no, I didn't know anything about a union. I didn't know how it worked. Other than like, honestly, I thought unions were only for like construction workers or people that work for like that do manual labor, like linemen for like power companies. I never thought that like someone like a bank would ever be like unionized. So when they reached out to us, we got letters in the mail, and then Wells Fargo had like a brief like meeting with our managers in the morning, like, oh, you may get paperwork about the union and just do your research. And I'm like, okay, I just brush it under the rug. So then we started, I think I called the number or sent a text, and then someone reached out to me and told me like what all they stood for. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. Like, I'm all for it. So as soon as, we wanted to voice our opinion on, the unionizing or the unionizing talk, we were immediately silenced. So I knew then that there's something like I already knew like unions were not illegal. They're not illegal. There's something that Wells Fargo wants to keep from us. So that was my reasoning. I never looked at myself as a union person, or never thought I would be this far with like doing podcasts and answering questions, but here I am and I love it.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
That is so interesting, and it resonates with me a lot because growing up, I was also not a union person, quote unquote. Like, I didn't have a strong union family background, and I was like you. I thought unions were, blue collar workers, construction workers, things like that. And so that is one of the most exciting things about this campaign at Wells Fargo across the country, is it's helping show people that unions are for workers, white collar, blue collar, pink collar, no collar, whatever your job may be. If you've got a boss, right, and you work for your living, you could benefit from a union. So something that
Absolutely.
so that's something that's been really exciting about this campaign. And I'm just curious. So once these conversations started and you started talking to your coworkers, y'all eventually became the first union Wells Fargo in the state of Alabama. And I'm
Yes.
curious, what has it been like coming together with your coworkers? Or is there any like moments that stand out, from that experience?
Well, so it's been great. I'll start off with that. It's been great. Wells Fargo has handled it pretty much as professional as they can. I don't easily scare to like intimidation. They have their tactics. They have their ways of saying, hey, we're better as one. Come to us for your needs. We don't think that a third party has to be involved. But for me personally, that hasn't worked so far. So, hey, I'm trying something different. And my point to our regional director, I told him, I'm like, if unions are so bad and you all are so against us joining a union, there must be something good that comes out of it for us, not you all, because you're here to protect the bottom line of Wells Fargo. Um, I'm here because I want to know my rights. It's that ignorance that of like not knowing that Wells Fargo preys on. They bank on that. So the more we know, the more power that we have. And if we do that in solidarity, if they see us coming together unexpectedly, then, they have to kind of go back to the drawing board. So it's kind of like, in a way, satisfying to kind of see them squirm a little bit. But yeah, my feedback from other branches, they're scared. And I mean, and rightfully so, because, it is scary. Like it's unknown territory. So
It takes a leap of faith, right? A leap of
it
faith in the
definitely does.
process, in your coworkers, and the movement as a whole. And like you said, big employers or even small employers, a lot of employers, don't respond well typically when this happens. And like to your point, they think there's something they are going to lose, and they don't want to lose that at the expense of the
Right.
workers. So that's really important, I think. And something that you mentioned also brings up this question for me, which is, for the people who think like we used to, that unions are just for blue collar workers, manual laborers, what would you want them to understand about why people who work at a bank could use a union as well?
Because even though like our job is not um, manual labor, it's still labor. They've downsized like everyone else, like every other company that I've seen over the years, especially since COVID. They have really downsized. There's not a lot of people in the office anymore working. So they're giving us more work for the same pay. Um, and we're working. We're mentally exhausted. And it is manual labor. We're going back and forth, like with my role as a personal banker, I'm jumping back and forth between the teller line and the platform side. That's what we call the banker side. And I'm doing twice the job. And, I took on the job as a personal banker, so I wouldn't have to be on the teller line as much. Um, to become a teller again. So that was another reason why I said, this has to stop, because I'm still obligated to meet those same metrics, those same numbers, and help the same amount of customers with two jobs, and it's almost impossible. So it's definitely a lack of companion. I mean, I'm sorry, a lack of empathy on their end. So we ask for more people. We ask for um, a certain amount of time to get things done, and they always go by something called cloud core, which is like this AI system that generates how many people you need in a branch per day, which is insane, because you never really know like the traffic in the branch. Um, and on top of that, like we have something called like losses. Like if you take so many losses or make so many mistakes, you're out of there. There's no job security, which is another reason why I decided to unionize, because that's not right. Like you can't just um, tell me that I have one job, but then it's kind of, you know, in the shadows. Like, okay, what really is my job? So that was another reason um, that I decided to speak up. And I know what I deserve. I know my worth. And Wells Fargo is a $1 trillion company. And it's definitely a slap in the face when we get these annual reports of what our CEO, Charlie Sharp, has made each year. Like, I think this past year, they gave him like I think it's like so many $1 million of a raise, a crazy number, when that should be able to go in the pockets of their workers, because we are the face of the company. They tell us that all the time. You know, the customer doesn't see back office, or they don't see our CEO every day. They see us. So I think we should be like protected the most. And I don't feel like that with Wells Fargo before the union, but now I totally do.
As we're wrapping up here, you mentioned that, y'all are kind of the face of the company, and something that your union has been sounding the alarm about is the toxic sales culture at Wells Fargo. I think folks will probably remember there was a huge scandal about Wells Fargo's toxic sales culture several years back. It went so far as, the company forcing employees to like create fake accounts and to like really do everything that they could to try to pressure customers into products that they didn't want or didn't need, et cetera, et cetera. And your union is saying that some of that is starting to come back. Can you talk to us about the report that your union has come out with, and what are some of the things that y'all are identifying from the inside as being worrying?
Well, they definitely are bringing sales goals back. And it's funny you asked that because I had a district manager. I don't even really know if it came from the district manager. I had a manager that told us, per the DM, we never stopped selling, which is kind of crazy because I'm like, I don't look at it as like selling, but they have introduced new metrics, quote unquote, where there's certain numbers that you have to hit. Now, back in the day, we had specific numbers, like you get so many checking accounts, savings accounts, debit cards, online banking, things like that, then you get a payout. Now they've kind of covered that up into something else. Now there's no actual number though. So I think that's how they're kind of getting away with trying to cover it up as something else, but there's like no number. So they'll tell us like, hey, you have to do this activity, this activity, this activity. And I'm like, okay, so how many activities am I supposed to do per day? Oh, there's no number. No, there's a number somewhere. We just don't know the number. So it's like they're kind of setting us up for failure because it's like, okay, there's a number that I don't know about, but I'm supposed to just do the activities. But then I get called into a meeting saying I'm not like doing enough of the activities.
Right. You're being
So I'm
held
like, well, what's the
accountable
number?
without knowing. Yeah, you're being held accountable without knowing exactly what you're even being held accountable for.
Right.
And it's, it's like we're not going to put the quota on it so it looks, bad, but we're still going to give you the pressure behind it and pressure you to, meet those expectations. But we're not going to tell you exactly what those expectations are.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very, very, very frustrating. And so I am curious, like, y'all are making history really with this campaign.
We definitely are.
Y'all are making history with this campaign, and I wanted to give you the opportunity, like, how can folks support you? How can folks support Wells Fargo United? Whether it's in Anniston or throughout the country, because there are now 25 branches, I believe, or over 20 branches.
Yeah, it's over 20. It's about 27, maybe 28 branches and departments that have unionized.
Yeah, that's great.
And
so
now,
what can folks do to support y'all?
Just stand with us in solidarity. Just tell people, like, if you know anything about a union, whether it be in banking or blue collar, just give them the facts. Let them know there's nothing to be worried about. It's all for our benefit. And Wells Fargo spreads this propaganda right now with the union stating like they're really putting an emphasis on like dues. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been asked for a cent since I've joined. I haven't been asked, for anything. And I would willingly. I mean, joining a union for me is like insurance, like car insurance. You pay it every month, not knowing if you're going to need it or not, but you pay for it anyways. The thing with the union is like they haven't asked me for any money, but I would gladly pay just for the extra, peace of mind to know that, hey, I'm protected. And if I feel like in any way that I'm being treated unfairly or something's not right, I can go to someone who's knowledgeable and who's going to have my back. A third party who really has no like real interest in the company, but is interested in me and my rights.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you so much for the hard work you're doing, putting Anniston on the map as the first Wells Fargo store to unionize here in the state of Alabama, and for spreading this campaign, letting folks know that it doesn't matter what kind of job you have, whether you work in a bank or you work out in the construction industry, you work in a school, wherever you work, you need a voice. You need folks to come together and have each other's back. That's how you build power. That's how you protect yourselves on the job and make your life better and your family's life better. So thank you so much for appearing on the Valley Labor Report. Was there anything else you wanted to leave us with today?
No, I thank you. Thank you so much for having me this morning. And I just want to leave with one message to anyone who's in the union or thinking about joining. Don't be afraid. It's all for you. We are the union. There's no one over us telling us what to do. The workers make up the union. So anything that happens, any decisions that are made, it's us together. No one is left out.
Thank you so much. Solidarity.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.